how bones look. Thank you. And what they do. And my primary interest is looking at the evolution of upright walking or walking on two legs. So I get to study some really cool fossils from the cradle, as well as non-human primates and humans, to try to understand a bit better why it is we walk on two legs, when it started, and what the implications are for our health. I've published before. This was my first author paper. And I sat for 2 years in review. So I think one thing academia has taught me is patience. And this is something I was really, really proud of. It was work I got to do in my honors and alongside all of my supervisors who supported me through the entire journey from collecting the data to actually publishing the work. As I mentioned, I do get to work with a lot of cool fossils, including the Homo naledi fossils from the Lesedi Chamber. And this was another publication I got to work on not so long ago. Apart from being really interested in these form-function relationships and in how we evolved to walk upright, I'm also really interested in how it is we share the work that we do. So how do we take academia and research work and science outside of universities and into the public, and what does that actually do for the public and public understanding? Alongside some of my friends and colleagues, we've published book chapters as well as some peer-reviewed papers, which is always a fun time working with your friends. As I mentioned, apart from being an academic, I'm also very passionate about science communication. I prefer to write. I think everyone has their own preference. Some people are really good at like TikToks or at YouTube or videos, and I prefer to write. So this has given me a lot of opportunities, and I think that this has exposed me to careers outside of just academia and careers that I find really fulfilling, that kind of bring together my love for research work and my love for paleontology with my passion for ensuring that this information is shared more broadly than just academic circles. So I've written for a number of publications. The one I'm most proud of, though, and I always brag about, is that I write for the EONS PBS channel on YouTube, which gets seen by millions of people all over the world. And we tell really cool, interesting stories of fossils and evolution. And it's been a beautiful opportunity for me to be able to share, especially stories out of South Africa and out of Africa. So looking more at our evolution and what our continent contributes to the understanding of evolution, which is often sometimes, I would say, overlooked. So this has really been a wonderful opportunity to take that story further than I could have ever imagined. And most of the videos that I have written have received over 1 million watches. So I think the perfect job that kind of brings together the love of communication and education and sharing the fossil knowledge with working as a researcher is definitely being a curator. Last year, I became the curator of the Marupeng and Sterkfontein official visitor centers in the Cradle. And I get to kind of do the fun stuff of creating exhibits that will be shared with the public. And we actually have a new exhibit that's going to be on display from September. So please do come and join us. Sorry if you're hearing a lot of noise. I am at the office. So that really is, I think, an indication of the diversity in jobs that are available to you as someone who is potentially interested in the paleosciences or someone who has studied the paleosciences. You don't necessarily need to become an academic. It's all about pursuing what it is you really want to do and what brings you joy. And yeah, so I spend most of my days working on exhibits, trying to figure out strategies to improve the way the museum presents information and tells this unique story, and trying to elevate the profile of the museum, trying to involve more communities and people in this knowledge so that it is more accessible. And it is, for me, the best job in the world. I've also been really, really fortunate to participate in Super Scientists, which is a fantastic, fantastic initiative that you need to look up. Aviwe, myself, and a bunch of other scientists have been turned into superheroes, and it has really just taken this message of the diversity of researchers, the diversity of fields, and what it is you can do to children all over the country. So that's been such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And that is it from me. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and also to the staff of DITSOM for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was very fascinating. I don't know if colleagues have questions. I will give a minute or so to get questions from the floor. Okay, we have a raised hand. Oh, it's Dr. Miriam. Dr. Miriam, please unmute yourself.
Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My apologies for logging in late. I am using my cell phone. I had technical issues this side. Thanks, Kim, for sharing with us what you currently do. Let me just share with the attendees that Kim did share with us a very detailed biography that we could not read on time because I was struggling to connect, but she did cover it extensively on her talk. We appreciate the time you gave us. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say my apologies for logging in late. Thanks, Deborah.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Kim, thank you so much for a lovely presentation. It's always a pleasure seeing my friends again, because of all our busy schedules. And thank you so much for inviting us to be here. And it is truly an honor to actually come and speak to everyone and to participate in this webinar today. So let me not waste any further time and just start with my presentation. So my name is Aviwe Luanda Nosikumatluwane. I have a past, history and education with botany. I was a botany student for most of my life, and I am now doing my PhD at Rhodes University in paleobotany with Dr. Rose Previk. I am a research associate at the Albany Museum, and I am a science communicator and a science and languages and literacies lecturer in Turtle at Rhodes University. So my research interests include paleobotany, taxonomy, forest biodiversity, ecology, decolonization in science, and teaching and learning in higher education. So I'm going to talk to you about my journey in science. How did I begin, this journey? And did I ever, think I'd be in a position where I am today, actually speaking to everyone? And the answer is no. When growing up, I never knew about sciences that much, but I knew that there was, a whole lot of things that you could study, but I was not, aware of the sciences itself. I had the fortunate, experience growing up, having had a grandfather who was very involved in my life and shared a lot of knowledge with me about plants. So growing up, I knew about plants. I knew particularly medicinal plants from the forest in our area. My grandfather used to, take me on walks, and he would show me which plants were used for what. And I found it very interesting, but I never knew that I could actually study botany or get involved in anything botanical. And it was quite an interesting journey in my life in science, because when I started out, I actually wanted to become a vet. I love animals. And I just wanted to become a vet, and I wanted to study animals. And when I got to varsity, that actually quickly changed, because I realized that I was such a softie when it came to animals, and I would not cut it as a vet. And then I did an undergrad in biological sciences from Walter Sisulu. And then I went on and, did my honors at Rhodes and my master's at Rhodes in forest biodiversity. So in my current position at the moment as a science language lecturer, I engage students across all social and cultural spaces, and with all these different backgrounds. And I teach them how to be confident in how to learn and how to engage in science. We also guide and we support the students to adopt a broad range of learning practices and disciplines of science. And we use broad and innovative ways to teach the students, to make sure that they are well-equipped scientists in the future and they understand what science is all about. And I really love what I'm doing right now, and I think it has a huge impact, particularly in higher education and particularly science literacies in students across the nation as well. And people who do this work are very much needed in all fields. And this is currently my new passion, but let me not digress. Let me tell you more about my journey. So I actually studied my master's, and I did a project in forest biodiversity. So I was looking at forest plants across the escarpment in the Eastern Cape. It was more of a taxonomy and taxonomy project where I was describing plants and making sure, looking at the diversity within the forests themselves. And I must say, my master's was one of the most challenging and yet fun times of my life. And I think that's why I still work with my old supervisor. We're publishing papers together. And it's still research that I'm very much interested in and still continue to do today. And during my master's, the final year of my master's, and I was busy writing up, I got really tired of the whole topic. So I started volunteering at the Albany Museum. That's where I met my current supervisor, Dr. Rose Breivik. And she introduced me to paleobotany, and she introduced me to a whole new world. And I was so hooked and fascinated. And then, I spent a couple of years with her in the field during my PhD, collecting data on fossils and working with really interesting, material in South Africa. So the work that I am currently doing is working on Glossopteris, finding the taxonomy of Glossopteris, basically standardizing the taxonomy of Glossopteris. And I am working with a whole bunch of people. The research is connected to different, studies that we're doing in the area. And so we're trying to sort of reconstruct the paleo ecosystem that was around 260 million years ago. And my work is mostly taxonomic, and it's basically describing these leaves and finding a way to actually, standardize it across, around the world, hopefully, because a lot of people don't want to work on the leaves, and they say they're a waste of time. But paleobotany is actually a very interesting and very important study, because not only does it help with painting what the environment was like millions of years ago, but also it tells us and shows us what animals were around during that time feeding on the plants. And also it helps to reconstruct paleo environments, and tell us about the evolution of plants through time. So that's why I became interested in the study, and I actually enjoy it. And I'm sure you can see from the pictures from the field that I posted that it's mostly a very good time, and we enjoy ourselves during this process. So I've been involved in a lot of science communication. The very first person to actually get me involved in science communication was Christine, who's the manager of the COE at the moment, Genus. And she pushed me to actually enter FameLab. And I had, I was very self-conscious. I couldn't talk or present. I was, I didn't have the confidence to actually speak in public to anyone, actually. And so after FameLab, things just changed. I was able to talk. I was able to present my way in a manner of, where people could actually understand me at all levels. And I got so many opportunities opened, through a science communication. I mean, one of the things that Kim touched on is a super scientist, cartoons that are portrayed of us. And I think, like she said, you really, really need to get engaged and look them up and see the initiatives that they're doing and how they promote not only Black scientists, but scientists across South Africa. And so getting involved with this project has also been an extreme highlight in my life, and amongst other things that I have done. And science communication has also been sort of one of the things that takes a lot of time, and I understand why people actually have it as a profession, where you have science communicators. And so it's actually creating a lot of jobs for the youth to present, science-related topics, to work on, exciting things like Kim was presenting on. And this is actually a career path for other people. But there's so many avenues in science and paleo sciences that it needs to be out there. It needs to be communicated with everyone. People need to know what is out there and what everyone is doing. And I hope through a lot of us who are participating in science communication, we're able to elevate and make sure that people know what scientists in South Africa are up to, what the youth in South Africa is up to, and that we are not invisible, and that we're there, for the world to see and engage with us. So I've had a lot of fun with science communication, and I have enjoyed it very much. So the other thing that happened during this whole journey in paleo sciences, I got to meet some extremely wonderful people in the field, and this actually happened during lockdown. And I got the power of social media is we take it for granted. I met a lot of wonderful ladies from across the world, and we ended up grouping together and writing this wonderful paper for Nature, Ecology and Evolution, and it was published in December. And we still continue working and collaborating with each other, and joining the Global North and the Global South researchers, in making sure that we create an impact in paleo sciences, and people are aware of the struggles and challenges that we face around each other. So I actually I'm actually collaborating with all these different researchers that you see here, and some in Germany, Pakistan, South America, and we all have our different, interests. And it's been such a wonderful, journey, looking and seeing all the familiar things that I am going through that they are also facing. and looking at all the dynamics and all the research that is happening around the world, and helping each other to be better researchers. So this has been absolutely amazing and, a great opportunity for me. But, with paleosciences, there's been quite a lot of struggles, like I've mentioned, but, and hopefully we'll discuss as we go along. But, the one thing that I have found is to actually, align yourself with people who have similar thinking, people who have been through what you are going through. And this is exactly what my next slide is about. It's about the people who have been through what, through paleosciences before you, have experienced the same struggles that you have experienced, like Miriam and, Noni, who have been anchors in my life and mentors, and they have inspired me in my journey in paleosciences. And also it's quite important to have allies. Some of the people I have posted, Lisa is going to be speaking next, and Kim, spoke earlier. It is really important to have people who will have your back, who will support you, and people who you can share your struggles with and say, this is what I'm going through, and know that you're not alone, and know that everyone is going through the same thing that you're going through, and how you deal with it and how you support each other and how you also survive is through, talking to each other and making sure that you get the adequate support, because through all the dark, cloudy shadows that you have in paleosciences, there's always light. And we find light in, you create your own spaces, like I have with mine. And I mean, I haven't posted a whole lot of people. I mean, Selindo is online. I haven't included him in this, in this image because we're talking about women in science. But I just want to let you know that there are people who are willing to assist, and there are people who are willing, to be there and support you as a scientist in paleosciences. So with that, I would like to just thank you all for listening to my talk, and also say I'm willing to engage any of you in the, in the chats, and I'm willing to take any other questions. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aviwe. This was very interesting. I think we will take questions and comments at the end. So I will let the next speaker come in, and right at the end, we'll have the questions and comments and maybe a discussion afterwards. So without wasting any more time, I would like to call upon Ms. Cebisa Mdekazi to please present for us her lecture. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone on the call today. So my name is Cebisa Mdekazi, and this is just a list of things that I will touch on today. Oh, my camera's not on, sorry. There we go. Okay, this is everything that I will be touching on today. Okay, so first I'll start with my background, my academic background. So I did all three of my degrees at the University of Witwatersrand. So I did my BSc as a double major in geosciences and animal, plant, and environmental sciences. I did my honors in paleontology as well as my master's in paleontology. And my topic for honors and masters was basically to better understand the locomotion or the movement of these early crocodilomorphs. So they were these very early fossil relatives of crocodiles, of today's crocodiles. And they specifically, I was looking at the ones that lived during the early Jurassic period of South Africa. Okay. And I was just fascinated and just tried to understand how they moved, because they looked very different to what we have today, specifically in terms of size. So they were about the length of a ruler, and they had these very long legs, very long forelimbs as well. So they were very active animals compared to what we have today. So if I could just touch on my current occupation, I am currently the Assistant Director in the Integrated Environment and Conservation Management Subunit in the Cradle of Humankind World Heritage Site Management Authority, and we fall under the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. So what is the value of the profession to society? So I'll answer this question in the context of my current job. So first of all, the Cradle is a declared World Heritage Site, and it is one of the 10 listed UNESCO World Heritage Sites in South Africa. And that means that we are the custodians of the World Heritage Site. So what I do is I protect the natural resources, specifically the fossil sites, the biodiversity, so plants and animals in the Cradle, and also the water sources. And this is to ensure that the water sources in the Cradle are clean enough for consumption by humans and the animals. And currently I'm sure maybe one or two people have seen articles on the water in the Cradle. Currently, it's not in a state to be consumed by animals or humans. So that's something that we are actively working on. And on top of what I do in integrated environment, I also work on land use management. So I am currently the acting deputy director in land use management. And this just entails looking at the applications we get. So people constantly want to develop in the Cradle. And my job is to evaluate the applications for the type of development that they want and to assess if that wouldn't affect, first of all, the environment, but also if it's feasible to build there. So for example, the Cradle has, a large chunk of the Cradle has dolomite, right? Which means that it's not very stable for building on. So you could have sinkholes and you could possibly be building on an area that might have fossils. So we look at that as well, but we also just monitor the type of development in order to prevent the Cradle from just turning into like, like an urban city, for example. So we want to maintain the sort of, we call it an outstanding universal value. But basically it's just to maintain the state that the Cradle is in for future generations and to ensure that our resources in the Cradle are not basically diminished or yeah. So that's how I think that's how specifically my job adds value to society. Okay, so just to touch on the challenges faced in academia. So I think the biggest challenge, and this is across the board, not specifically within paleosciences, but it's funding. There's very limited funding, which means people are almost, fighting or like, scouring for funding. And also work opportunities. So I remember when I was still in academia, I had a chat with a friend of mine. I had a chat with a friend or a lab mate, and he mentioned that he had some other funding that I had never heard of. So those sort of opportunities that are made available to other people. And also in terms of work as well, like, some people would have jobs and it would be work that is the first time you're hearing about. For example, there's some people do paleontological impact assessments, but broadly, a lot of people aren't aware of how to enter into that space. But apparently there are, quite a few jobs within paleontological impact assessments. So I think when it comes to funding, work, and traveling opportunities, they are, one, limited, but secondly, almost withheld. The information it's gate kept, like the information is withheld from some people. So that was one of my biggest issues or challenges in academia. And I think the second biggest challenge was just the general and very frequent gaslighting. So, you know, and this would be typically if you raised issues around like sexual harassment or around bullying or racism, then instead of that issue being dealt with, you would instead be called, you know, too sensitive and dramatic and that you're an instigator. So that for me was not fun. And then moving to challenges faced in the workplace. So since leaving academia, I've been in one job and I've been in this job for 3 years now. And I haven't actually had any challenges that I can speak on, which honestly feels like a breath of fresh air. You know, it's very like relieving to not have to face constant issues and constant challenges. So just to speak on the opportunities available within paleosciences. So I mentioned that there's limited job availability, as is the case for, you know, just most jobs currently. But I also wanted to speak specifically to government, as I'm a government employee. So government prioritizes youth and people with disabilities, and they also apply the Employment Equity Act, which basically means that they try to alleviate, you know, like inequality within the workplace. So this means employees or applicants who apply are afforded equal opportunities to A, get a job, but secondly, to progress within government. So for example, what they will do is if, say for example, my department is currently, they currently have an advert out, and so what they do is they assess the type of demographic within the department, and they look at what demographic isn't represented. So then what they sometimes do in adverts, at the bottom of an advert, they'll state that, you know, we are giving priority to maybe Black females or an Indian male, you know, which I think helps to, or will help to ensure that the workplace is representative of the demographic of our country. So I've also just listed 2 sites where they would typically post jobs adverts. So the first one is DPSA, and that's where they post any adverts for national departments as well as provincial departments. And this is, and new posts are put up every Friday. Every Friday around 1 p.m. A list of posts are put up. But also another site is the provincial government site, which I've also linked. So there they just put, you know, jobs for each of the provincial departments within Gauteng. So, and this site allows for online applications, which makes it nicer for people who aren't in Johannesburg. So my advice for people interested in paleosciences, you know, okay, so this is, first of all, this is a very fun field. I've attached 2 photos of myself. The first one is me in the field working hard. And the second one is a nice opportunity I got to go to France, to go to the ESRF, where we went to scan. So one of the blocks we went to scan is in the photo. went to SCAN because they have really excellent scanning facilities. So, you know, this is just to show that it's a very fun field. There's a lot that goes on. There is, you know, there is a possibility of getting some opportunities to travel and to do work and to go out into the field with different teams. So you learn quite a bit. But secondly, it has very, very limited work opportunities. So that makes it difficult to stay in the field because, you know, it's not very sustaining. But my advice for people would be to participate in outreach initiatives and to take on any work opportunities that are made available in their university during their studies. So what this does is it helps with like work experience, so that when you finally go out and you're looking for work, you have some sort of experience, you know, practical and theoretical, just so that you are eligible for work, but also so that you can do the work as well. Okay, so my closing remarks are that paleosciences in South Africa is a slow changing field where active steps are being taken, particularly by the different funding and state bodies. So what a lot of funding bodies will do is they will encourage public participation and outreach from their students and researchers who are applying for funding. So that's good. And they also encourage researchers to support and supervise students, particularly students of color. But however, we are still a long way from having a fair and just field. Thank you so much. And thank you to the funders and organizers of this webinar.
Thank you, Cebisa, for taking us through your journey from the university to entering the workplace. And thank you to all colleagues, the two ladies that have presented. We do thank you very much for making time for us today. It was a very short notice. We requested your participation at a very short notice, and we appreciate your availability and the depth of your presentation that you have just shared with us. They were very, very informative. And we are going to take these discussions to schools because we have invited some schools to participate, but because of technological challenges that they were experiencing, they could not be part of this, but we are hopeful that they will get the message. We will share with them any other information that they might need. And if they do want to link with you regarding career guidance, I'm sure that is a discussion the three ladies will be willing to partake on. This lecture has some sentiments because we are currently celebrating Women's Month in the country. August is our month as women in the country, and also women in science. We are far and few in between. The statistics do not speak well for us, especially in the field of paleosciences. The ladies that have presented have indicated that we do come a long way, but we still have a long way to go regarding inclusiveness as well as transformation in this field. There is a lot that still needs to be done, and we are hopeful that a lot will be done with those that are in the field really supporting each other, because without the personal and professional support that we give to each other, we are really not going to achieve far in the field. Ours is a very lonely, field to indicate. Those that have studied in the field will indicate that yes, it takes some doing to survive in this field. Before I just become soapy and share a lot of experiences from that I have encountered in the field, I would like to open the floor for chats and comments, as well as questions to the ladies. We can utilize the chats or just raise our hands to just comment or ask them questions. Thank you, guys. I don't see any hands. Tebogo, please assist if you see any hands that I don't see.
There is a hand up from Michael Ellis. Michael Ellis, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you very much, Miriam and colleagues, for a wonderful presentation. I'll get us going with some questions. Yeah, I must say, just well communicated to all the three presenters. I think it was lovely, as always. You know, it's lovely to see familiar faces, and it's always lovely to hear you speak about your research with the passion that you speak. So thank you very much for being such active activists and communicators of your research work. You know, I think you're all doing incredible work. My question maybe is just with your current role, with your current understanding and interactions with various different publics and people that you interact with on paleosciences, what are you seeing at the moment as some of the challenges that you maybe are enduring in communicating specifically in this area of science? And how do you see just us overcoming those challenges in South Africa? So quite a broad question, but maybe just to get some experiences from you in communicating about paleosciences. Thanks so much for the lovely presentations.
If we may start with Kim, thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Always great to see you, well, to hear from you. I think in particular, for me as a paleoanthropologist or biological anthropologist, so someone who studies human evolution, there's numerous challenges when trying to bring that message across to people. And I think that one of the major issues is who gets to tell the story and what they get to tell. So for the longest time, this field has been dominated by white men, by a very Eurocentric approach to evolution, a very dismissive tone of people's cultures, of people's beliefs, and of people's knowledge that don't fit that stereotypical mold. So I think that one of the ways that we can start approaching that problem and start getting more people involved and to be a more inclusive space would be to change who gets to tell the story, and to invite more people to share their opinions, to share their science, their indigenous knowledge, to share their perspectives, and also to be able to tell these stories. We can't continue in the same vein. It's proven that it doesn't work, and it doesn't assist us in furthering the science if we only hear one voice. So we need to diversify the storytellers of this incredible history that we have. I think another challenge is, why would you study paleontology, or why should we invest money in paleontology when there's issues with water, with food security, with there's challenges facing people who are alive today? How do you then justify the spend on paleosciences? And I think that the major issue there, and what we need to start working on, is reframing the sciences, reframing it. You know, we were, I don't know, Clevisa and Aviwe could probably speak to it, when we were in undergrad and we asked the question, why do we do this? We were just told that it's for the pursuit of knowledge. You know, it wasn't really making it applicable to people or relevant to people. And so then there's this divide, this disengagement from it, because people don't understand the real world value of things. I mean, if Aviwe her work can help us understand things like climate change and how it will affect food security by looking at the past to look within the present and make predictions about the future. Clevisa's work on looking at how possibly environments changed and how that can affect organisms in an environment. It's all important lessons, but we as the researchers in the field have to take the onus to ensure that we're communicating this and communicating it effectively. So I think that's also something that needs to be looked into, is paying people to be science communicators, employing people as science communicators, because the work can't fall only to researchers. Firstly, it's a different skill set that you need to learn. And also we need to start broadening this field so that more people are able to participate, and perhaps that is through different I won't call them alt academic because I think all jobs are academic in some way. You're always learning. So to look at these fields like science communication, and I think the COVID pandemic is a prime example of that, of the dangers of misinformation and the importance of having good communication. So that's where I think the future of science, of paleosciences, needs to invest more in, is bringing more diverse voices in. Instead of focusing on just bringing people in, focus on keeping people in, and also look towards how we engage with the public. Thanks.
I think, thank you for the question, Michael. Kim has touched on, a whole lot of things, and I fully support her. But also, I think one of the challenges about science is communicating in science is, or communicating your story is, whose story do you tell, like she said? Do you even have since there's a lot of gatekeeping in paleosciences, you run the risk of, stepping on toes, because there's a lot of possession. People are so possessive about knowledge. They're so possessive about, what you can talk about to anyone. And, it's so weird, because this is one of the sciences that I find to be, a lot of people would, particularly the public, and everyone is very interested in, but you fear that by talking in platforms like these, by talking in any platforms actually, is what is the person or the audience that was actually engaging you, on a particular topic is going to say or report to someone who, who's sort of like, the professional in the field, or they known to, they're very well known in the field as well. And the interesting thing is, when it comes to science communication in South Africa, it is less closed up than, internationally. We, particularly with Black women having voices, we're very celebrated, internationally compared to South Africa. And I don't know why, and it's so weird. And it's sort of like you're undermined with the knowledge that you have, and you're not seen, basically. And it's a very hard space to navigate in South Africa. And it's always nice. I honestly, to be honest, I prefer talking to high school, or primary school, students, because they're more engaging, they're more fun to talk to, they ask you the right questions, they do not, attack you personally, they do not, they're interested to learn, basically. And so it's yeah, without me diverging much into this, but it is a very difficult space when you're a science communicator in South Africa and want to share this information to the world. It's encouraged, yes, but it's not really supported.
Yeah, I won't be adding anything. I think Aviwe and Kim said everything that needs to be said.
Thanks, ladies. We had a hand from Mpho. Mpho, you may take over.
Dr. Miriam, I think she lowered her hand, but there's a comment or a question in the chat.
Yes, we have a comment from Kelo Kubu. The comment is a comment on funding opportunities. It sounds like being a Black woman make it harder. How do you navigate the race issues in the field?
Okay, I'll just touch on funding opportunities. So I think that in the recent years, funding bodies have made an effort to ensure that people who previously didn't get an opportunity, funding opportunities, have those opportunities. I think they have tried to prioritize specifically, you know, Black youth, females, when they give funding. So I guess I would say just keep applying because they are also, they are very aware of the fact that previously we didn't have funding opportunities.
Can I also just add in terms of funding opportunity? I think one of the challenges we face is most of the funding does not come directly to us. It's funding that is channeled through supervisors, through you know, a research group, which mostly is not headed by, you know, Black women, you know, academics. So even you know, applying for funding as a, you know, I'm sure you know, Nhlanhla and Miriam will be able to, you know, confirm this, is it's quite hard for them who have been in this field for the longest time to get funding. And then who are we as Kim, Tabisa, you know, and myself to apply for funding when, you know, our, you know, senior and more, you know, well-known, you know, I'd say researchers are, you know, are also struggling with funding. But there are other avenues of actually getting funding. So if you're not, so for example, the COE does give funding. There's also PAST that gives funding. There is, you know, you can also get through government like Tabisa said. But I would also suggest that you look internationally, in international spaces where there is funding particularly targeted for Black women in, you know, in science or in paleo sciences. And so it's highly competitive, but I mean, there is funding out there. It's just that it's also a problem when you try and to encourage people to join paleo sciences, because you're going to do paleo sciences, get your PhD, get your, you know, but where's the job opportunity? So there's still that, you know, disenjoyment where from getting your PhD to what's next, what now? Do I do a postdoc for the next 15 years, you know, trying different postdocs, you know? So you need to be very creative and sort of find your niche in this field in order for you to actually be successful and be able to be employable, basically. And I mean, the three of us have been lucky to actually even, you know, get a job in, you know, in any way. I'm in academia, you know, Tabisa is in government, and Kim is also sort of government but museum, you know. And so it's been very interesting to see the diverse and the different branches of employment we've all gotten. And to be, and the funny thing is, a lot of people never thought we'd get here. A lot of people, because the three of us are also known as the troublemakers. You know, because we're known as troublemakers, and by troublemakers is because you're speaking up or you are, you know, standing up for an injustice. So, and I mean, a lot of people never thought that this would come, and we're very happy, you know, that we've been able to establish ourselves in different avenues and having impact in a whole lot of fields. So, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to add, oh, sorry, Miriam, I just wanted to add onto what Avi was saying. I think one of the major problems that I faced when it came to funding was there's almost this like complete disconnect between funders and the reality of those that they fund. So it's like you will get a certain amount of funding, And out of that funding, your tuition comes out. And if you like stay at Raise, your fees and everything come out of it. And then what you're left with is what you have to eat for the rest of the year. And it's not, I think funding models as they stand are not very practical in considering the needs of people. A lot of funders will have clauses, so you can't work at the same time you're studying, but then you're making such little money from your actual funding, and oftentimes it gets paid late. It's an admin nightmare. You're fighting everybody at your university. You're fighting everybody trying to get your money, and then it's March and you're stressed and it still hasn't come in. And so, there needs to be that conversation with funding bodies. There's this disconnect between funding bodies and the people they fund. You cannot pay people in June. You cannot pay people barely enough to live on and then also put in that they can't work. You cannot expect people who come from different socioeconomic backgrounds to have the same experience, whereas some people funding is fun money. It's nice to have, whereas other people are literally living off of this money. So there is that that disconnect. And if we want to be honest in our endeavors to invite or to have better representation and to see more Black women, to see more colored women, to see more people of color in general in the field, we need to start having these conversations about what support is actually needed to keep them there. Instead of just saying, well, we gave you funding and that's the end of the story, because then we're not transforming the field. I used to always use the leaky pipeline, but it's not a leaky pipeline. It's a forced extermination of people that are not fitting that typical mold of privilege or of color or of whatever the case is. And you're actively excluding people, even though you might not be very outward about it. The action excludes the person. So I think that needs to change. And like Aviwe said, there are a lot of funding opportunities available. And one of the challenges I personally had was how to write these things. Oftentimes this is your first exposure to grant writing or applying for funding. And we need to start supporting students in that as well. You can't just expect someone to come in and know how to write a grant, or not give critical feedback that would help them improve their grants. So I think we do need to really invest in the support mechanisms that we have for students.
So, is there anything to add? No. Oh, okay.
No, Miriam, thank you.
Okay. Aviwe touched on something that I deal with a lot. School kids, they would often ask questions that you are not even confident to respond to them. They will ask you, okay, after getting this degree, will I be employable? Will it be a nice environment? And those are the challenges that if you are not even confident yourself to have survived that period in your life, how do you tell one scholar to really go for a particular career that you have really gone through the worst to get those particular qualifications? So those are the challenges that really they need to be addressed in the field. We have already acknowledged that there are some change, but change is something that sometimes it has to be fast-tracked, because it really, the delay of the change delays the majority of us for really just telling scholars that yes, paleontology is a field that you can really flourish in. Although the opportunities are there, it is a fun field, but it just needs a little tweaking here and there from the administrative side of things. Funding, that one is a big issue. You will submit 6 applications to 4 or 5 different grantees out there. You will get one response that is positive. The rest, the reviews will even crush you professionally, because some will share with you why you didn't get the funds. The reviews tends to be, maybe we tend to take it personally, I don't know, but some I felt that they are extremely personal. They did not maybe look only at the merit of the proposal, but there were probably some underlying factors why a review came in that manner, but you move on, you submit another one. So it's also a long way to go, but we are lucky now that we are getting some funds. I've been getting some funds applying on my own. So yes, probably I did learn a lot, having to write 5, 6 and not get any positive response. So yeah, it is something that we are working on. I'm going to read on comments from participants. Michael said, great comment, Aviwe, and thanks for being so open and honest about the challenges you experience. So real. The issue of gatekeepers in communication is so important. Mpo has come up on the chat because she could not unmute. She just wanted to ask if the panelists have experienced challenges at youth in science. She also added that raising a voice as a young person and trying to establish new directions of research in our field is challenging. Anybody else wants to speak to challenges that they have experienced as youth in the field?
I think I
Can I just?
Oh, sorry, Abby.
Go ahead.
No, go, Abby.
One of the other things is what I wanted to say is, you know, my last slide, I talked about, you know, allies, and I talked about, you know, creating your own spaces and your, you know, your core group of people who will be there and who will advise you. It's the other challenge is even creating those spaces, because it seems as if it's viewed in a very horrible manner, where it seems as if you're plotting to do something, whereas, you know, you're just trying to create a positive space for yourself. And you know, I went through a very traumatic experience, and it still haunts me today, and it makes me you know, very emotional to talk about it, because it was one of the things that I was targeted for. And yeah, but it's, you know, just trying to be in a space where people are very supportive, where it's changed into something or turned into something that is bad, and trying to make people feel like they did the wrong thing for reaching out. And so that experience for me, I'm not going to share what it was, but my, you know, Tabisa and Kim and Slindo know very well about what I'm talking about, because it also affected them in some way, but it actually affected me more, because I was the one that was targeted at the end. And so, yeah, and it made me question why I actually even, you know, looked at trying to get help in paleosciences. Who my allies are, who can I talk to, who can I trust? You know, it made me question a whole lot of things, because you know, I'm deeply scarred, you know, by what happened, because I can't even talk about it without getting emotional. And I just can't, yeah. But even trying to get a space where you get people who support you is looked at a bad thing, as if you are trying to, you know, take over something, or you plotting something, or you know, and so, yeah, but yeah, that's just like one thing that has made me question my place in paleo, and question a whole lot of things about being in paleosciences, because I was singled out for something I never did, and it went on to be paraded, and it went on to, you know, have an impact in a whole lot of things regarding me, my progress in my PhD, my you know, my mental health, and those are things that we don't talk about. Because even if you do talk about it, it's like they say, no, you are creating what's it called, you're making excuses, you're doing this, you're doing that. So the mental health of students and researchers in paleo actually does need to be, you know, something that needs to be addressed, because we need to stop, you know, targeting people who are trying to reach out and trying to get help, because I was trying to get help, to try and get help and be, you know, blasted and be, you know, paraded. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing gets turned into, oh, this is actually a good thing. This is actually, you know, made to seem like my experience was trivial, and now it's a good thing. So I just, yeah. So that's just one thing that I want to share, is that I have had a lot of challenges in paleo, particularly from just one experience where I tried to reach out, get help, and, you know, align with people who I felt like were very good people. And, you know, and it's still hard for me to even, you know, be in a group where I'm talking like a WhatsApp group with Abisa or Kim or Celindo without, you know, without fearing that someone, like, if, because, you know, just talking, saying, oh, I talked to Kim in a WhatsApp group, it's already saying, oh, WhatsApp group, who's in the group, you know, what are you talking about? What are you, you know? So it made, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, fine.
Thanks, Aviwe, for really opening up. I'm going to be honest saying that majority of us will really we have a lot to share. Most of the memory strips still brings tears to our eyes, but because of the love of the field, we are still here. We are still willing to learn. We are still willing to be part of the change, even though most of the time we are not the contributing factors to the problems. So yes, we carry around emotional scars, to be honest. I don't know if maybe Kim and Kebisa wants to add on. I don't see any questions in the chat.
You know, firstly, I love you, Avi. I know that is really difficult for you to talk about and to be open about. And I know many times we share a certain persona, or we share a certain image of ourselves, but you've always been very open about your mental health and the impact of this field. And I think that by you being so open, it gives others that space to feel like it's okay to feel what they feel. I think Aviwe has summed it up. You know, there's many challenges. I think we could all list for days experiences that we've went through. So the three of us are friends that are on the panel, and some of our other friends and colleagues have had very negative experiences in paleosciences. And like Aviwe said, there comes a point where you question your place, or you question your belonging in this field, because there's active efforts to make you feel like you don't belong. Like Cebisa had mentioned, the gaslighting, the way opportunities are kind of dangled, and some people are rewarded and some people aren't. Favoritism, it can be really brutal. And I think that while we can acknowledge that this is a widespread problem, sometimes I feel like when you say something is a widespread problem, people think that this means they don't have to work on fixing it because it happens everywhere. And then people become complacent with it. And at the end of the day, as students, the power doesn't really lie with us. It never lies with us. It's the people who are sitting at the top, who are your department heads, who control where the funding goes, who ultimately can make a huge impact in this field. It's the fact that if someone is, you know, a lot of researchers who are harmful have gotten away with it simply because of their ratings. And we'll be like, oh, but we can't do anything about this person because he's A-rated or she's A-rated. And then you have to question what your values are in this field. And who you're willing to sacrifice, because ultimately that's what you're doing. You're getting people kicked out of this field to protect other people. And you're saying you want to change this field, but you're not actively doing anything to remove the harm in the field. So it is extremely challenging. It's extremely challenging being a woman in this field. We've had so many stories of sexual harassment and sexual assault, and on field trips and within the department. And it's tough to be a person of color. The derogatory terminology will be used in front of you. It's heartbreaking. I speak for myself. I don't even call myself a paleoanthropologist anymore. I'm a biological anthropologist. After my master's, I left paleo. I moved to the School of Anatomy, and I did my PhD there simply because my experience was so terrible in my master's, and the toll it took on me mentally, emotionally, physically was just draining. And I'm very grateful, like I've always said, to have a good support system. I have a brilliant support system in my supervisors who kind of understood that if I was to stay on for a PhD, I couldn't do it in my department. I needed to leave, or I think I would have probably left altogether. So we do need to honestly examine these spaces and these environments, and instead of just paying lip service forward, which is what has been going on. I mean, I entered paleo sciences in 2015. It's 2022, and we've been talking about the same things. We are constantly talking. We talk here, we talk there, we have workshops, we have this, we have that, but ultimately nothing is being done to actually move this forward and to transform the field. So I mean, the challenges in this field are numerous. And like Miriam said earlier, how do you then encourage school children or encourage people to take up space in this field? And one thing that I stand by is I'm honest about it, because I believe that people should be able to make informed decisions. And there are good things and there are bad things, but you almost feel bad for telling people, okay, come study paleo, when you know you've been traumatized by the experience. And like Miriam said, we stick around because we want to see the field improve, and we want to see the field change. But I don't think that should come at the cost of people's mental well-being. And I think that if we are going to commit to proper change, there are people that need to come to the table that don't come to the table. We all know the issues with transformation. We don't need to talk about it. It needs to be the people who sit in power that come to the table and actually put some action to the words that they say when they put nice slogans together about unity and, we share a common past or we share whatever, then put some action to it.
Thanks, Kim. I'm going to read some of the comments and then we'll see if we are about to wrap up the proceedings. My laptop decided to freeze on me. Paul Malimeja said, thank you, Aviwe. I had a similar conversation with a lot of fellow young scientists in zoology as well. It's a pity that science is losing a lot of young people because of these challenges. Thank you for raising your voice on it. And then Krista said, thank you, Aviwe, Kim, and Kebisa for sharing your experiences. Strength to you and your important contributions today and in science. Ladies, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the robust discussions we've had. I did tell the colleagues at education that this is one topic that will probably, at the end of the day, you will have several emotions going through you. I know that now they do understand, and they are aware because we work with them closely. They've been in outreach a long time. They are exposed to several fields in sciences. And it's not only the paleo sciences, I'm sure a lot of science little disciplines are not little at all. A majority of the disciplines in science, the people of color will tell you similar stories that we in paleo sciences are privy to and have experienced. I am now going to hand over to Bongi Otebogo from the public program so that they can wrap up the proceedings for us. Bongi, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tawane, for facilitating this conversation. I wish to thank our panelists for sharing their fascinating journeys in paleosciences with us today. I also wish to encourage them to keep doing the wonderful work that they are doing, to also wish them strength in doing the work that they continue to do. A special thank you goes to NRF SASTA for providing us with the funding to be able to participate in the National Science Week. We are truly grateful for their support. I also wish to then thank all the participants who joined us today. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to come here and join us and participate in this important conversation that we had today. I hope you have a good day further. Thank you once more.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.